Welcome to Dystopia. We have gathered 5 different people from various backgrounds that have been brought to this remote location to create a perfect community. The so mentioned, ideal, morally proper community has the obligation to provide a secure environment where everyone can prosper and have equal rights. The individuals have an obligation to respect others, protect each other's rights when the community fails to do so, and make positive contributions to society because the community can most effectively function when the individuals do so. Today, we'll hear from those various individuals and their takes on what is needed to have a proper society.
The community has an obligation to provide well-rounded education, and we have an obligation to be hardworking students because education shapes the future. Since education has such a heavy impact on the future, it would be in the best interest of the community if the education systems were to improve.
Students and those affiliated with the education systems have an obligation to do their best to learn and use the education provided in order to make significant contribution to the community.
I believe the community has an obligation to provide protection and justice through the police force, and we the people have the obligation to abide to the law and protest peacefully if police abuse their position. The community needs a safe environment so that people are able to lead safe, happy, and prosperous lives, while the people must follow the law to keep order and peace.
It is one's moral obligation to pursue knowledge that will be positive to all humans rather than as an excuse to commit harm or an act of terror. Those in all positions, from a scientist with dangerous chemicals to one who knows how to use computers really well, they have a duty not to let the line between cruelty and meaningful discovery become blurred. These doctors tried heavily to use the scientific method and technology of the time period that they had to access with the intent of strengthening their individual community. From the perspective, it would not be an issue to take any possible means of doing so. However, in the bigger picture, numerous deaths were forced to occur. Morality and science should be not shown amongst a community of common beliefs, but towards any living thing. There were various experiments in Auschwitz in an attempt to sterilize the Jews so they could keep their own population low, and the Germans could remain the majority of the population. Test subjects were forced to endure very intensive damage to their bodies, but there was nothing put in place to ease their suffering. So those running the experiments were doctors as myself, but it heavily contrasts the positive image which the medical profession is supposed to carry. These inhumane actions, which veer away from the general aims of a doctor, highlight the right a society has in limiting actions of an individual. Everyone, especially in a field directly involved with the lives of others, are obligated to maintain a positive image and act within a non-harmful manner representative of those standards. Numerous heart failure experiments were ran in a Michigan university, forcing dogs to run on treadmills and go through invasive surgeries. 1/4 of the dogs did not even survive the experiments, and the ones that did were killed. Although that there was evidence on these studies like having no positive effects to discoveries on humans within medicine, but their viewpoint of a dog as being less important as a creature probably validated what they were doing, and that's unacceptable. I personally look up a great deal myself to Frankenstein. Tried to base my own creature off of Frankenstein's. So I bought this dog from Petco, and I ran a variety of my own experiments on him.
I always had a feeling that Frankenstein was written with post-colonial bias. In Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, the creature is representative of powerful nations, while the people he terrorizes are colonies. The novel serves to illuminate how powerful nations have the obligation to not abuse their power over weaker nations in order to maintain a secure world community in which all the nations can prosper on their own. The creature tells Frankenstein about how he approached a village and the people responded in both fear and violence from his awful appearance. The village represents a colony. People reacted in terror to Frankenstein, just as the colonists revolted against the colonizers. Things fall apart. The same situation happened when the colonizer came and the oracle predicted the destruction they would bring, so the leaders killed the colonizer. The community felt obligated to protect those living in the community when threatened, so the leaders decided it would be best to eliminate the threat immediately. Arriving is similar to the monster's arrival to the village. The villagers reacted harshly since they all had assumed the scary-looking creature intended to harm.
The violent way the villagers and Igbo people reacted to those who were different reminds me of the police violence towards minorities, such as Eric Garner. According to an article I read in the New York Times, Garner was unarmed and choked to death by a white officer while saying he couldn't breathe. The justice system failed to live up to their obligation to provide Garner with proper protection of his rights from the police force because the officer was not charged. This incident and others like it create an unfair and dangerous society for minorities.
So what you're saying is that society sometimes stereotypes individuals to the point where we do cause harm to them. It is our obligation to our community to accept and respect others, while it is the obligation of the community to create a safe environment to do so.
Yes, we must create a secure community for everyone. In Frankenstein, the monster's mission to get revenge on his creator caused him deep sorrow. And when telling the story of when he was in prison, he says, "Sometimes, indeed, I dreamt that I wandered in flowery meadows and pleasant vales with the friends of my youth. But I awoke and found myself in a dungeon." Looking at this quote through the post-colonial lens, the use of colonized countries' resources by the colonizing countries is similar to the creature taking away Frankenstein's happiness. When a stronger country or person uses their power to manipulate others, it creates injustice in society. This is why people must protect each other's rights.
I agree. When authority figures such as police violate rights by using excessive force, the police need to do something about it, but only peacefully. Many cases of excessive force have sparked protests and riots, such as the burning of buildings and looting of businesses after the Ferguson case, which is mentioned in the article What Happened in Ferguson. These riots only cause more chaos in the community, which is why we have the obligation to protest peacefully.
Yes, but everyone, including authority figures, make mistakes. The creature in Frankenstein expressed his guilt after Frankenstein dies when he said, "What does it avail that I now ask thee to pardon me? I who irretrievably destroyed thee by destroying all thou lovest. Alas, he is cold, he cannot answer me." But you don't just accidentally decide to ruin someone's life out of revenge or prejudice. That quote goes to show how it was wrong of the dominating countries, represented by the creature, to exploit the developing ones, represented by Frankenstein, for their own evil and selfish reasons. Walton is right in his response to the creature's remorse when he says, "Your repentance is now superfluous. If you had listened to the voice of conscience and heeded the stings of remorse before you had urged your diabolical vengeance to this extremity, Frankenstein would yet have lived." Looking at this quote through a post-colonial perspective, it could be inferred that if colonizers had let colonies be independent, the colonies would not have the problems it has today in creating a peaceful and stable country. Therefore, it is necessary for the community to maintain an environment in which everyone can prosper and not be controlled by more powerful people in society.
Now that we have heard everyone's opinions on community obligations, let's see how they apply them.
The novel we've been reading, Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe, illuminates how the community and people have an obligation to support each other in protecting the population's culture and rights. If it fails to do so, there is great potential for disastrous results from an individual level to the entire community. Where can you find proof of this claim? You will receive extra credit if you can find ways to connect night.
When Okonkwo called the Igbo people to go to war with the colonizers after they refused to leave the tribe, no one helped him. Shortly after, Okonkwo committed suicide. The community had an obligation to support him. Their failure to do so brought Okonkwo great sorrow, causing him to commit suicide, showing the negative effects it has on the individual.
A quote in Things Fall Apart that foreshadows the devastation that results from not supporting others is, "At last, the locusts did descend. They settled on every tree and on every blade of grass. Mighty tree branches broke away under them, and the whole country became the color of the vast, hungry swarm. The locust's complete consumption of the earth symbolizes the colonizers' takeover and ruination of the tribe. The disastrous effects to the tribe are emphasized in this passage and prove how helpless the tribe was because they did not unite to fight the colonizers."
Speaking of supporting those in your community, Night by Eli Wiesel demonstrates how family members are also responsible for helping one another through difficult times. The guilt that can result from failing to do so consumes the individual, causing them suffering and brings suffering to their family members. Yes, this is evident when Eliezer says, "I had no right to let myself die. What would he do without me? I was his sole support," while talking about his father. Eliezer holds himself to the obligation to survive in order to support his father, because his father would be alone without him. This shows the importance of supporting your family. The devastation resulting from the failure of the community to work together is also seen in Night,
when Rabbi Elihu desperately searches for his son's body in the snow after his son had tried to lose his father to have a better chance to survive. The rabbi's son did not uphold his obligation to support his family. He abandoned his father when he needed him most, causing him suffering and loss.
Another example of not living up to obligations in night is when a man killed his father on the train for a scrap of bread. The son prioritized his survival over the obligations to his family, so much so that he would murder his own father. This emphasizes the suffering that not supporting family members can have on them, and in this case, it costed his father's life.
The guilt that one can feel from not carrying out their obligation is seen when Eliezer says that he will never forgive himself for not helping his sick father while he was beaten by the Nazis out of his fear of being beaten. Eliezer's guilt for not living up to his obligation haunts him, showing the suffering that failing to support family can bring to the individual.
Ice JJ Fish told me about where he grew up and about his family. There is as much potential in him as there is in every student. All he needs is a push. In class, I read a particularly interesting quote in Things Fall Apart that said, "How do you think we can fight when our own brothers have turned against us?" The white man came quietly and peaceably with his religion. We were amused at his foolishness and allowed him to stay. Now he has won our brothers, and our clan can no longer act like one. The members of the tribe did not stick together when the colonizer tried taking over, and some even joined them. This prevented the tribe from fighting the colonizers and resulted in the destruction of their tribe and culture, showing how the tribe not standing up for each other can result in disaster for the community. If Ice JJ Fish's family had faith in his ability to succeed in school and be more supportive of him, things would be significantly different. Social domains are responsible for student achievement. The article Importance of Education claims that if an individual or community fails to focus on the importance of education, the ability to obtain a well-paying job and subsequent ability to raise a family or pay bills would meet rigid barriers. The Russell Sage Foundation states that educational attainment differs negatively among those of minority racial ethnic groups and coming from families of low income. Those coming from poor neighborhoods may lack security, causing stress from violence and crime that may occur. A student's potential is occasionally underestimated. We stereotype and associate the appearance of people with their intelligence, which affects the performance of those students. The people of Umofia assumed that the white man was a fool, but we were wrong. It is each student's obligation to their school to treat each other equally. Where it says, "Our own brothers have turned against us," it shows the importance of family, teachers, and surroundings. The article, Education Has Changed Over the Years, points out another flaw. If education has such a heavy impact on the economy, why isn't the focus on education in our community? The community is having political debates on cutbacks and the dissipation of teacher salaries. Education is the reason individuals are obtaining well-paid jobs and why our society continues to thrive in new inventions. Not only is education impacting economic aspects, but also builds character. As shown in the article, What is the Importance of Education to Our Society? A school's job is not only to educate them by textbooks, but also in life. Teachers work on students' honesty, fair play, consideration for others, and a sense of right or wrong. These traits are known to be parent responsibility, however, schools do enforce them.
$1 per bar. You have a license for that again? People like you need a little lesson. I can't breathe. It's your boy Ice JJ Fish back from the dead. Officer Smith's reaction was way out of line. According to the article, police use of force. No universal set of rules governs when officers should use force and how much. However, law enforcement officers should only use the amount of force necessary to mitigate an incident, make an arrest, or protect themselves or others from harm. Police must be held up to this obligation to keep our community safe, so that others are not murdered like I was. However, I believe that police should still follow the law. According to Fox News writer Shira Monte, crime rates have risen in Baltimore, while the number of arrests has lowered. This is likely a result of the anti-cop environment, which, as shown by the rise in crime, just creates a more dangerous environment for the people. This is why we should still follow the law but protest peacefully.
These disregards of communal obligations, as you can see by this tragic event, can have terrible outcomes. Therefore, the community has the obligation to maintain safety in society, an environment in which everyone can flourish. The people must keep each other's rights from being violated by the community and make only positive contributions to society.